On a warm summer day in Adelaide, Australia, January 26th, 1966, three children, Jane, 9, Arnna, 7, and Grant Beaumont, 4, set off for a fun-filled day at Glenelg Beach. The Beaumont siblings, like many other Australian kids, often took the bus to the beach without their parents. It was a different time, a time when parents felt safe letting their children roam freely. This trip to the beach was nothing new. It was a familiar, comfortable routine. But this day would change everything for their family and for Australia. Jim and Nancy Beaumont, the children's parents, expected them to return home by 2 p.m. As the hours ticked by with no sign of their kids, anxiety began to creep in. Nancy felt a growing sense of unease, a mother's intuition stirring. She and Jim began calling friends and neighbors, hoping the children had simply gotten sidetracked or perhaps missed the bus. But when their efforts came up empty, they quickly realized something was very wrong. By early evening, the police were notified, and the search for Jane, Arnna, and Grant began. The disappearance of the Beaumont children quickly became one of the largest manhunts in Australian history. The local community sprang into action. Hundreds of volunteers, friends, neighbors, and police officers scoured the beach and surrounding areas. But despite their efforts, there was no sign of the children. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. What made the case even more chilling were witness reports. Several people had seen the Beaumont children at Glenelg Beach that day. In fact, they were last seen in the company of a tall, thin, blond man in his 30s. The children were seen playing happily with the stranger, as though they had known him. This raised an unsettling question. Had the children been lured away by someone they trusted, or were they taken by force by a man they had just met? The story captivated the nation. Day after day, week after week, the media followed every new lead, every possible development. But despite the intense scrutiny, no solid evidence emerged. The stranger seen with the children was never identified. It was one of those cases that gripped the public, not only because of the horror of three innocent children disappearing, but also because of the complete lack of clues. The disappearance of the Beaumont children baffled seasoned investigators and terrified parents across Australia. The case remained in the headlines for years, with countless theories swirling around the mysterious disappearance. Some believed the children were abducted and met a tragic end at the hands of a predator. Others speculated they had been taken and raised by someone in secret. Psychics even offered their insights, claiming to know where the children's bodies were buried. But none of these leads ever panned out. As time went on, Jim and Nancy Beaumont's lives became consumed by their loss. They received numerous hoaxes, false sightings, and tips that led to dead ends. The strain took a heavy toll on their marriage, and eventually they separated. Despite the passage of time, the heartbreak of losing their children in such a mysterious and tragic way never faded. In the years that followed, several suspects were named. One such suspect was a man named Harry Phipps, a wealthy Adelaide businessman with a history of pedophilia. Witnesses came forward decades later, claiming that they had seen Phipps near the beach on the day the Beaumont children vanished. There was also a strange tip that two young men had been hired to dig a hole on Phipps' property around the time of the children's disappearance. But even after excavating his factory grounds, no evidence linking Phipps to the crime was found. Despite renewed investigations and countless efforts by law enforcement, the fate of the Beaumont children remains a mystery. To this day, their disappearance is considered one of Australia's most infamous cold cases. It left a deep scar on the nation and changed the way Australians viewed the safety of their communities. The tragedy also had a profound effect on law enforcement, leading to new methods and strategies for investigating missing persons cases. As the years passed, Jim and Nancy Beaumont lived in quiet hope that one day they might find answers. They hoped for a miracle, that somehow their children might be found alive. But as the decades rolled on, that hope faded. The disappearance of Jane, Arnna, and Grant remains a chilling reminder of how quickly and completely life can change. The Beaumont children's case will likely remain one of Australia's greatest unsolved mysteries, with generations haunted by the questions it raises. What really happened that day on Glenelg Beach? Who was the mysterious man seen with the children? And why has no trace of them ever been found? Their story continues to captivate the public, drawing attention from true crime enthusiasts, amateur sleuths, and investigators. Every few years, a new lead, a new theory, or a fresh look at the case emerges, but it always seems to fall short of providing the answers that Jim and Nancy Beaumont and the entire country have longed for. As we remember the Beaumont children, we also hold on to the hope that someday the truth will finally be revealed. If you're fascinated by these mysterious, unsolved cases and want to learn more about the world of true crime, make sure to subscribe to Crime Park. We'll continue exploring cases like this, diving deep into the darkest corners of history and unraveling the stories that still haunt us today. Don't miss out on our upcoming investigations. Subscribe now